All right, we're going to call our meeting in order at the Public Works Building. It's January 7th. Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome. Public Works. We're here today to talk about police and fire workshop, to the whereabouts where we're going to put it. I think the right way to start, first online, we're going to have on the teams, we have the TVs facing you. And on the line there is David from Dewberry, Tina from Atkins, and then Paul sitting in the audience here from Dad. Pat. With a P. All right, Pat.
P from
So to go ahead and get started, the best way to get started is to kind of find out where we are. I'm going to have the city administrator kind of go over what we've been doing for the last year and a half and where we're at as of today.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. I'll speak in general terms because I'll let the consultants speak on this in more detail because they are much more versed and professional at anything we do here. But nonetheless, we all know that our police and fire facilities were destroyed by Hurricane Michael on 14th Street back in 2018. As you know, FEMA wants us to build back where we were in the same configuration that we had, but don't make any improvements. Well, we all know that on 14th Street, that area is in the 500-year floodplain, so they finally agreed to let us find an alternative location. By the goodness of the St. Joe Company, they gave us 25 acres of property to the north of us right here. A good bit of that property is in the floodplain, but on the area that is not, we were kicking around some preliminary footprint designs for both of those facilities. And the facility for the police and the fire, as well as a civic center, would fit very nicely on the 25 acres. We kicked that around for a while, and finally FEMA came back and said, we agree with the location, but none of the things that you're building can touch any of the floodplains. So the floodplain actually surrounds most of that dry area of the 25 acres. So to get to the 25 acres, we have to go up 22nd Street, right to the west of us here, and cross the ditch or canal, whatever you want to call it. But that canal is in the 500 and 100-year floodplains. So that also means that any of those abutments for the bridge that we would build over the floodplain would be in the floodplain. So right now we are faced with an issue of we have available property, but probably no way to get to it. We looked at other alternatives and decided that the area where we currently sit across the street with the pickleball courts, basketball courts, City Hall would be an excellent place for these facilities. But our first concern about all of this was, what are we going to do with the pickleball courts? Because we know that's a very important thing to the community here. And we said that if we do go forward with that location, we would have to make sure we build and relocate the pickleball courts first before we actually build the police and fire stations. So at this point, we have not decided on a location for the pickleball courts, but nonetheless, we have excellent grant writers to help us to get that process rolling when we decide where to put them, if we move them at all. At this point, that jury is still out. But nonetheless, we did bring this up for city council consideration in December, and it was decided that it would be good to have a workshop so that the public could have some input and the city council could hear from the consultants directly and take it from there.
Dina, you're online. Do you have anything to say before we get started here? Maybe you're not.
I think Mel did a really good job summing that up.
Okay. You have nothing to add to that? David, you online?
Yes, sir.
You have anything to add to that?
No, sir. Can y'all see my screen?
We see your screen, just the initials.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that works. Okay,
It might be helpful with the screen if David just at least orients people who are in this workshop what they're looking at, because I know what I'm looking at, but I'm not sure that everybody understands what that image,
Okay,
where we are relative to that image. And
who's controlling the mouse?
I am.
David is.
David.
David, okay, good deal. All right, David, if you can just kind of show us where the 25 acres is, what we're talking about there, and where
Yes.
22nd Street, all that.
Here's 22nd Street right here. Here's the building you guys are sitting in, right here, and then the ditch behind you, and then the 25 acres is kind of bordered it within this red dash line right here. What the blue shaded areas are the subsequent flood zones. They're either gonna be the shaded X, the A, or the AE flood zones. Here's the cell tower that's back there, that was constructed not too long ago.
What's the difference between the lighter green or lighter blue? Did you point that out?
It all just represents the actual flood zone itself. I mean, you have different ones, like you have your shaded X, your A, and then your AE9 over here. It all shows up as one blue that's on my screen. I don't know if it showed up as a different color on yours. This is the uplands area here, the zone X.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Anybody have any questions on that? This is an open meeting, so if you have a question, kind of raise your hand, we'll identify you and go from there. Come on up, Tim.
I just want to point something out real quick. As we're talking about using the pickleball courts, it looks to me like it's in the flood zone.
No, it's right there with the X's.
Okay, so it's
Right,
That corner, maybe.
Okay, that's what I wanted to be sure.
Ask David that. It looks to me like the blue's on the corner.
David,
yes.
the pickleball courts are not in the flood zone?
They're not in the flood zone. This is the green or the blue is flood zone. Outside of it is not flood zone.
Okay,
So,
so this area right here.
Hold on there. Okay, good.
I understand FEMA won't let us build a structure in a flood zone. Will FEMA let us build a pickleball court in a flood zone?
Yeah, I passed that to you.
Well, just quick,
So, I think the answer to that is FEMA, for these facilities, has said that they want us to stay out of the floodplain, the blue areas, because they do not, according to policy, they do not want to use federal funds to impact the floodplain. So, and I think to answer your question, I'm not sure that the pickleball courts would be eligible. They're not a part of the facility that we're trying to replace.
Great, okay. That was gonna be my next question, is what does FEMA funds cover? Is it exactly what the facility was that was destroyed and anything going on in it, which was police and fire? And is there any more?
So,
Sorry, go ahead, Dean.
yeah, in this case, FEMA is funding the replacement of the police fire facilities with some upgrades due to codes and standards.
Right.
So for example, they've granted some additional square footage to the facilities to meet codes and standards with respect to ADA and some other requirements.
Does additional parking fall within that FEMA scope that they would reimburse us for?
If it's required by the land development code, it could. Part of what we're trying to get to is provide FEMA this scope of work and get feedback from them on what they are deeming eligible under codes and standards. But if additional parking is required by the LDC, then we can certainly present that.
Yeah.
And should qualify as a code and standard.
Isn't it true that we can probably get something approved in that area if we can get access to that area. Is the bridge the holdup?
And Mayor, when you say that area, you mean the 25 acres?
Yes.
Yes, FEMA has acknowledged that the facilities themselves, based on what we've described, could be put outside of the floodplain. The concern that they've raised is the fact that we would have to build a road and bridge that does impact and cross the floodplain. So
Okay,
that has been the concern.
all right, so we can build on that side, but the access is the real issue.
So,
You're shaking your head yes, so I'm thinking yes.
But,
Yes.
So,
go ahead, Mike.
so just to finish it out, we have this is all talk between FEMA and us. This is not anything that's been approved or disapproved.
Correct. So the feedback FEMA's given us is they have confirmed that it should not go back at 14th Street because of the entire facility being in the floodplain.
Well,
They have not confirmed the 25 acres or the municipal city hall site. That's where we're sitting now. They have told the city, provide us a design and we'll review it and tell you whether we think this is a reasonable alternative.
okay, so we can't build on the 14th Street. The pickleball court for us to look at is an option, but it's also, was it a FERDAP grant?
Right?
You know, so that's supposedly locked for 50 years. I don't know, probably wouldn't look good on us. And we have not given design to FEMA for the 25 acres to build the bridge and gotten a no.
Correct, we have not. That's the step we were trying to get to is through those task orders, is to get that design to FEMA.
Okay, good, super.
So Dina, the question I have is, and I'm sure most of the residents in town have this same question running through their mind. We're over 7 years in since Michael. We're still, in the view of me and most people, we're spinning our wheels wondering what FEMA would approve, if they would approve it. And I don't think anybody that's currently in this room believes they're gonna give us the kind of money that we're really gonna need to do what we wanna do. So my question to you is, and David's online, so we've all heard the potential of putting everything on our current city hall site, but I don't believe that makes long-term sense because I don't believe we can get the kind of police and fire that gives us the ability to grow into, and I think it's gonna create a parking issue on our current campus. So that's just points I'm making. I don't guess I need you to respond, but I can just see this being in the abyss for another 3 to 5 years and us not knowing what the heck's gonna happen.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Dina, can you just explain to the public and to us, because the road is what popped up with the 25 acres. And,
Right.
you know, we looked at it, and most roads that are built now are built above floodplain. And that was hard for me to get my head around it because the road would be built above floodplain. Yet FEMA is still giving you the indication that they would not approve that. Is that
Well, yeah, it's not necessarily the elevation of what we build it to, it's the fact that we're gonna have to impact the floodplain to build it.
Okay.
It's more, so what I've got on the screen here is originally, when we first started this, we were gonna come off of 22nd Street, and we were actually gonna line it up. You kinda, I don't know if you can see that, that's where they cleared a little bit when they did the tower. We were gonna line the road up right here and come in on site. When, FEMA changed the flood maps, their flood line several years ago used to be basically right there. so when they changed the updated flood maps, it pushed it out to here, so we had to shift it a little bit more. But the problem is we can't get there unless we impact the flood zone on 22nd Street, because you can see where it starts, gets across the ditch.
For 145 feet.
Well, and that's the other question is, so the bridge, when we touch down the buttons on the bridge from one end to the other, would necessarily be 145 feet without impacting the flood zone.
And then,
And the only way to get a road in, and I know this is not, I was just throwing this out there to kind of show you, but, I mean, we would have to kind of work around, come off 21st Street and go across the bridge, and then you can see we're impacting the maintenance building right here. So that, I mean, we're kind of in a rock and a hard place trying to get across this ditch without impacting any flood zone.
and then, my next comment is just for the, looking at this site here around the city hall. You know, we've glanced at some stuff and it's looking like it's, you know, the parking's gonna be an issue. You know, we're in a neighborhood, I know Public Works has been here. You know, the pickleball court's already here. So, you know, it just seems like a real big task to even start headed down that road. And that's how we got here, is there were some task orders on our agenda at the previous meeting to go ahead and try to get something rolling, but I think we're all in that, hopefully I'm speaking for everybody, that, you know, we're tired of going down these roads and spinning our wheels and getting 2 or 3 years down the road and then it not, you know, we can't, it just didn't work. I mean, we are 7 years into it, so, you know, I don't know where to.
Could I ask for clarification?
Yeah, go ahead. Well, go ahead, ask the question so they can hear it. Yeah.
So, it sounds like to me that FEMA will not pay, or will not allow, they won't impact the flood zone, but if we built the bridge ourselves and we were impacting the flood zone, would that not be a different issue? That if we built the road, then we're not violating FEMA's rules, because we've done it, but we could still then proceed to build out at the 25 acres?
We've talked about that, but we've talked about that, but I think that, there's still being impacted, right?
But it's not being impacted by FEMA money.
Right.
Well, Dina can clarify, but I think it's still an impact that's required to put the site over there, so they consider it part of the project, regardless of who pays.
David, I can jump in on that one.
Okay, sorry.
So, no worries. You're right, but it's kind of it's a complex question. And to answer it directly, we are not sure how FEMA will look at it. It probably depends a lot on how that road is put in. So there is a possibility that the city could pay and install the access, and FEMA would allow the facilities to go there. The only reason I say that that may not happen is FEMA considers that a connected action. If the road is built for those facilities, and that's why the road is being built, it doesn't matter to FEMA whether the funding for that came from FEMA or not. It's considered a connected action, and so they would still have to take into consideration those impacts to the floodplain. If the road is required because the city's going to develop the 25 acres regardless of the police and fire station going there, that could be an argument the city could make, that this road is required regardless, therefore it's not connected directly to the police and fire, and we're going to build it with our own funds. That could be a scenario where FEMA might accept it.
So theoretically, we could submit our design for the 25 acres with the bridge for them paying it, and then put an option for us paying it.
Yes, we could present that to FEMA, but again, if FEMA believes that the only reason that bridge is being put in is to serve the police and fire station, then likely they're going to say that's a connected action and it's part of the project, regardless of who's paying for it. and we're back to the same issue.
But they've never approved or disapproved it yet.
They have never yeah, exactly, they have not approved or
We've never
disapproved,
submitted.
and that's why this is, there's a lot of gray in all of the discussion. I think as the clearest they've given us an answer is, if you can put it outside of the floodplain and not touch the floodplain, then there's really not much of a hurdle for them to approve it. If that's not the case, then we could go down this route to Councilman Adams' point, spend the design money for the 25 acres, and at the end of it, FEMA still say, well, we can't approve the funding for this because you've impacted the floodplain. So it's just a matter of weighing risks.
Okay, Jason?
This is, maybe not, this would be something that we need to do in Mel's. We probably should start contacting the St. Joe Company and talking to them, just about this situation. See if they can help, and two, if they were, I know it's on the deed that it's supposed to be used for this purpose. So we need to go ahead and address that, because if that can be addressed, and let's just say the police and fire doesn't go there, but we would still need to build the bridge if we can use the money for, or the land for something else. So we wouldn't be out, you know what I mean? We're gonna have to get to it at some point to use it. I mean, I'd hate, hopefully we won't lose the land, you know? I mean, there's all kind of stuff we could do back there.
Yeah, so, and I think we all, sorry to interrupt, Jason, I think we all have ideas for that 25-acre site above and beyond what we see on the overlay right now, which is police and fire. David, if you zoom out, the red border is the 25 acres, right? And we're only looking at police and fire now. That's a whole lot of land that we can do green
Green
things
space,
with.
parks.
Yeah, pickleball courts, green space, all manner of city facilities back there that we don't need FEMA to pay for. They're only going to pay us for the relocation of police and fire.
Okay, Paul?
Pat.
Pat. I'm gonna rename you Paul.
You can call me Ray, call me Jay.
Call me anything you want.
So, and David or Dina, just, I think for this group, you know, we've talked in the past about Joe Road. You know, it's the road that goes diagonally up. That's what we're looking at.
Joe Drive.
Joe Drive. That I just want to make sure that everybody understands what the pros and cons of that being the access to the north end of this 25 acres and why that wouldn't be a route if you weren't able to do the bridge.
But that still crosses the floodplain.
No?
Yeah.
Where are you
This
at?
upper corner? So,
He just hasn't, he's only showing the flood zone inside 25 acres.
okay, so I want to make sure this map is deceiving because when you look at that little spike that goes
Okay,
up
where
to
is
the north,
Joe Drive is,
Joe Drive is that diagonal. So we do have, that's the other problem is that, and I'll go back to like, at some point, I think St. Joe Company is probably going to improve that road. I mean, this police fire station has benefits to them for future development, I'm going to assume.
so we've had that at this table. Joe, they want us to take over the road.
Okay.
But it does not get to our property, so that would, it's never come up here, and I'm just gonna mention this in front of the council that, you know, if St. Joe is willing to get on board to deed the rest of the property to us to get to it, then that's a factor, but right now, you know, it ends and we've never went that far.
Yeah, I think Jason brought that up. I mean, I wrote it down, you know, to see what help we can get from St. Joe Company besides this type of meeting. Ask that question.
So you're saying that the road, you could
access
You
it
could
through
access
Joe
it
Drive.
from Joe Drive.
Right.
To that
David
back
or-
corner. David?
Dina, you know, contradict me, I could be completely wrong there.
If the road were complete.
If the road were already improved and to where it was elevated out of the floodplain, that is a potential other way, but you can see how much blue that road goes through. So I just want to make sure that for the purposes of an open conversation, that we understand what the pros and cons and the trouble with improving that road and the likelihood that it ever would be considered.
One thing that I know FEMA has brought up in the past is the access to so the police and fire, wherever they go, are considered critical facilities. So FEMA holds them to the 500-year flood standard, not just the 100-year. And on the screen, you can see that most of Joe Road is in a zone A, that's 100-year. So elevating to 100-year is not going to be sufficient. It would have to be elevated to 500-year. So just, that's a thing to keep in mind. If that is the only, if Joe Road were to be the only access to those critical facilities, then the road itself would have to be to the 500-year standard.
Yeah, that's.
If we had two accesses, as long as one access is to the 500-year standard, that would satisfy FEMA's concern of the critical facilities being accessible.
We were always talking about two access roads anyways.
Well, that's the same deal we're dealing with the ditch. That's what we're here talking about. You gotta go through the flood either way.
Yeah,
Any input from audience? Anybody? Come on up. Lisa first. Next up. Lisa Logan.
Oh, sorry, Lisa Logan, Mexico Beach, thank you, forgot who I was. In my opinion, the best thing is to try to figure out what to do with the 25 acres. We've already put an enormous amount of time and effort and money into that, and it makes much more sense. If, for some reason, we cannot do that and use that 25 acres and have to go back to the current city complex right now that we're in, there are two other options that I know some of you have already looked at, but I want to suggest them. One is talk to Mr. Foley and see if we cannot purchase the back piece of property, which is ample room for fire police. And I'm glad that you brought up the fact that this is a two-part project, because we've also got to determine what to do with the new city hall and meeting space. And that's supposed to be part of this municipal complex. So if you could get the Foley property on the backside and put fire police there, and you could possibly talk to the Methodist Church about getting that entire side of 22nd Street, because the church has already got their fellowship hall, which is about the size of the old Civic Center. It's got offices on one end in one wing, and then we could have a dedicated meeting room in what is now the sanctuary. They've already got a parking lot and parking in front of the building, and then the two lots that are between the church parking lot and, what is that? Summer House? That also belongs to the church, so that whole entire side, and that could be the new city hall, civic center meeting space. So you'd have everything in a larger compound, and you wouldn't have to move anything really. The pickleball courts and the basketball court are indeed restricted FERDAP grants, and the city would have to replace those at the city's cost, which both grants were $50,000 apiece. We'd have to match that, so that's another $100,000 there. And to me, the fact that we are looking at a public safety issue here and a public safety facility far outweighs anything that has to do with a pickleball court. So the overriding thing here is what is best for the public safety facility, no matter what happens. So while I think the best route is to try to get on that 25 acres, it looks like there might be options for the rest of it that we could possibly live with, and that would give us room to grow.
Thank you.
Can I speak on one thing real quick? Not to you,
Oh.
This is we've got a grant writers and stuff on board now, and this is probably a long shot, but, you know, we're kind of tied with FEMA. We keep saying FEMA's paying. Can we take this on our own?
That my motion and stuff.
I mean, I just wanna know, is there
I got nervous.
is there,
Always when you need to come
is
up.
there
that's
some,
right.
I mean, this is police and can we just, cause the road is just FEMA's requirement, we could build this facility, and I know we're talking about a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. I was just talking to Chief beforehand. We're building fire stations in other counties and cities right now with grant funding. There are similar ties like FEMA has, but it's not as strict. You know, it doesn't need to be within the 100-year floodplain, but we could do without the 500-year floodplain sometimes. Wind zone, where does it place as it's more set up for public access, right? And so one thing to look at, coming down 22nd Street all the time, some grants aren't gonna love that idea. It's not direct access to a major state highway in and out. You know, can there be congestion issues? There's a lot of things that can play into that while we have a good stance of not having to deal with the flood zone, but then the other side is FEMA doesn't ask for some of those requirements that a grant may.
And I say grants, I mean, I'm talking about
There's
state money,
there's
yeah, I'm
appropriation,
talking about
we can
just
ask the governor
other
every
money
day.
besides
Yes, sir. Yeah, there's appropriations, there's LAP funding, there's a lot of different ideas. FDM gives out, disaster risk funding quite a bit that's still considered a grant, but not tied to some of those strict stipulations that you have with the FEMA funding. That is correct.
In your experience, these state appropriations that have lesser restrictions than FEMA, there's still gotta be some restrictions.
There are, right. So, like I was saying, you know, constraints with building or having it near a subdivision or bringing those fire trucks and ambulances and polices in and out of major routes. The road, to be honest, is gonna have some wear and tear, and so that's another thing we need to look into when we do that as well. Does the road infrastructure here, is it able to support a lot of those trucks coming in and out constantly? It is currently, but long-term to a new facility, is that something we wanna do? It can be expensive. I don't want to speak to specific ones, but I brought one up before, and I've got one right now at 10.1 million. So I mean, it's a big overhaul. The other unfortunate side of that is a lot of those typically you're going to have a match with. And so if I'm looking at 10 million, just throwing numbers out in an open room, 25% of that's a lot. So can we pull that out of city budget? That's just some things that we have to think about, because there's not always going to be a grant to cover that other 25%.
And this may be for Dina, and since we're talking about money. FEMA on the 14th Street, what is the money that has been talked about, Dina? What was the original, it was 3 to 4 million? Was that the number, is that what I'm
Yeah.
remembering? And then moving it to the 25 acres, we were already looking at around 8. And so, you know, that was just numbers that we.
So I will say that FEMA, because FEMA has agreed that per their own policy, these facilities must be relocated away from 14th Street. And that is something that we've been trying to push for throughout this entire process.
Yeah.
That has just recently been acknowledged by FEMA. So really, to answer your question, that original estimate that FEMA developed, which is closer to, I think, 3 million at the original 14th Street location, they're gonna have to rework that, because it obviously costs more money to relocate if you've gotta put in roads and infrastructure, et cetera. So the fact that FEMA has agreed, per their own requirements, it has to relocate, that then means that they will have to recost it and take into account those additional costs. So we don't know yet what the cost estimate will land on. I think when they have compared the costs in the past, they did come up with an estimate for the 25 acres that was closer to 6 million. But that was previously. They're going to rework the costs if we go this route. So we can't hang our hat on that, but that was what the number that we had been shown previously. And did want to back up just briefly, you know, the other scenario, if the city is committed to the 25 acres, whether it's just for police fire or not, the other scenario that we could put forward is, I mean, FEMA has not said no. They have not said no because they don't have our proposal, our design. So if the city's pursuing alternate funding because they think there's a shortfall or FEMA may say no, we could concurrently still provide this scenario to FEMA and see if they will fund it, if they do agree that this is a practicable alternate site.
So what is your, not to keep on, we're all the time, we're kind of, I think, if I can speak, we're ready to move on, we're ready to do this. I know we have to go through the right things. How much time do you think, and I'm not gonna hold you to anything, to get this in front of FEMA and really try to push them to say yay or nay on this road? I mean, I think that's probably one of our first, if there is unless you say there is no chance of this happening, it doesn't sound like.
I wouldn't say there's no chance. I wouldn't say there's no chance. Especially, I think I heard someone say that regardless of police and fire going here on the 25 acres, the city is looking for access to that site for other things as well. So I think that does open the door to FEMA potentially reviewing this and allowing the city to do the road under their own funds or, you know, take a look at it. So I wouldn't say there's no chance. But to answer your question about the time frame, again, the first step is to get the task orders in place. So, because really FEMA's not going to pick this up again and make a decision until they have the concept drawing. So I think that is a question for DAG and Dewberry in terms of how long it would take once they get turned loose on this to put together those design drawings.
Yeah.
Pat, and we haven't started that yet, right?
I thought we had something on the 25, a little more concrete.
Go ahead, Pat.
Well, we did. So we have the beginnings of a concept that in the world of logical thinkers, we had decided that, you know, your best money forward was to combine the police and fire into one facility that allowed you to share, you know, conference room, break room, reception, you know, the kitchen, things of that nature that made the combined square footage less than if you did them separately and, you know, fewer outside walls. So trying to look at a way that it would be cost effective to build those joint facilities.
So,
But FEMA is really kind of like, well, we will fund a fire station and we will fund a police station. But you're creating a new animal that we don't know how to deal with that. So part of our homework is to take the original concept and break it into now what does the plan for the police station look like? What does the fire station look like? They can be really close to each other, but they can't be integrated the way that we were originally hoping.
So that, you just answered some of it. So we got here because we had task orders and, you know, it was in the sum of roughly $80,000 between the two or what it was. And that's really what I can say I was like, I don't want to go down and spend money. That was on this site because there's already stuff being said. It's not, you know, and but you're saying we got to do that on the 25. I mean, we could be flushing that money. I say flushing, but that if we do the 25 acres is not.
So far, we haven't done any work really on this site.
The task orders were not.
So those had to do with originally looking at what it would take to put a replacement facility on 14th Street. And then we also, because we had to come up with cost estimates and what it would cost to elevate everything out of the floodplain, and can you even do it? Can you get a ramp long enough to get a fire engine up into, that high off of the ground? And ultimately, we did a very conceptual study of what it would be on the 25 acres. And
So the task orders I see, not to interrupt you,
yeah,
were for, from what I read, were for this site. It was a task order from
that's correct. So
from
that would be
your
for,
firm, and it was a task order from Dewberry.
correct.
It
So
was a task
would-
order to do the pickleball courts. and
Yeah, on this site.
area.
to do
Yeah,
a new
okay.
study for if we were using this site. We still would have to modify a task order to go to 25 acres now that we know that they're gonna force us to break them apart.
Yes.
So-
Okay, just before we go any further, there was one more person back there that had, way back there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was-
No, we're all right, we're good. Yes, sir, come on.
Okay.
My name's Terry Harrison. I'm 206 Mississippi Street.
Hi, Terry.
Couple of things. First, I find it's a little bit sketchy to me that you put all of your municipal eggs in one basket. You have the fire, you have the police, you have, city council meetings, you have, your city hall all in one area, which could form a lot of.
Currently, we do.
Currently, okay. So, access roads and all that stuff really needs to be taken into account, especially if at some given time you have a busy city council meeting and, the fire trucks are needed, police are needed, whatever like that. It's gonna cause a lot of, you have everything all in one area.
That's getting separated if we went to the 25 acres.
Right. So I would be, thinking that would be a good option. Other options, I haven't heard it. I'm not sure if Parker Park is even an option. That road, you'd have it's one way in, it's one way out, but there's no residents right there that would use that road. Is that even a possibility for that site? Is that even something?
I know the soil's pretty bad.
Yeah.
I mean, building anything, pretty
The city council received an email from a citizen today talking about maybe relocating the pickleball courts to Parker Park, but not any city buildings. There's advantages of maybe regardless of whether we build on this side or we don't. We're gonna have to probably move or maybe even expand pickleball courts, and a lot of folks are saying, well, Parker Park's not really used all that often except for special events. So.
I'm a pickleball player. I'm not an expert, but a couple of things to address is, one, I travel a lot of places and I play pickleball recreationally. And our courts, the surface is by far, superior to anything I've seen. And it would be hard to match that because you have to go ahead and go underneath and have a good surface to start with. So whatever you propose would be I'd be very skeptical of that, and I think a lot of people would. Other things you have to keep in mind is way the wind blows. A good example would be if you consider Beacon Hill. It was a nice gesture after the hurricane to go ahead and set up some courts. To me, it's another failure. You can see just by the fact of disuse. And most of it is because of the wind. There's other factors. But what we have is something really special. And it would be, I would use every discretion to keep that viable the way that it is. I think it's more valuable than any of us really can appreciate, just for the fact that economically it's a sound investment because it attracts a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I would be very, very cautious to say, let's move it because it's convenient for X amount of reasons. I'm glad that you're looking for alternatives for the police and fire department. I'm not going to be real helpful on that. I do want to go ahead and say we need to go forward cautiously on what's at stake. If you do say, let's move the pickleball courts, I think there's a lot more there to it than it needs to get the attention of everybody before we make any kind of rash decision.
I think that your suggestion of Parker Park, we had some issues with putting the amphitheater in there.
Yeah, and you can
Because
see
of the
that
drilling, so that probably wouldn't be an option.
it's in the 500-year floodplain anyway.
Yeah.
as far as the
So I just crossed that off my list, but appreciate it.
One thing I will say for the players, I mean, my wife plays and Mel briefly spoke, we are in the process of getting the bids and we are going to fix it. I mean, this, if anything,
We should be
if
getting this week.
anything, you know, this would be a very big undertaking to move these buildings here, so just know that it's gonna be fixed, and for the time being, until we discuss it here at this table.
Yeah,
You
and
know, you will have, the courts will be back, hopefully soon. I haven't talked to Mel, I'm out of pocket.
We're getting the bids this week, and as soon as we get that, we'll make a decision who to go with, and as soon as they can do it, we'll do it.
yeah, and if I had to take a temperature, it sounds like me that we have an appetite to try to pursue the 25 acres. That's the way I feel. That's what I'm hearing at the table, maybe wrong, but we're gonna vote on that and see what we do. But Tim, you had something to say, come on.
Thank you. Tim Linderman, 105 St. Francis. So I'm neither an engineer nor an artist, as you can see, but my thought is, looking at the contour lines, that ditch is about 2 feet above sea level. This area is 10 foot, it's about 14 foot to the 25 acres. Could we not build this bridge like 8 or 10 feet above the ground with a few pilings to minimize the impact of the flood zone? Would that be something we could do?
I don't know, David, you had the topo, did I see the topo on there?
Yes, sir, yeah.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, yeah, the trouble is, even putting pilings in, you have to go like mid-span or, partway through, they may still consider that to be an impact to the flood. I think Dina and I, we talked about that previously.
Is
So our initial approach was to try to get abutment and have a clear span across it. So we're not even touching the flood, but yeah, I mean, there's options, we can go back with, different types of designs and just let.
Is that the elevation there, David, the 8.07? Where are we at? What is that? What is the elevation?
It's 11, 2, 4, 6. So yeah, you're probably around 10.
So we gotta get above 14 and a half, or what is it,
Well, you gotta go over that ditch, which is about 2 feet, and it's about 10 feet right here, in this area. So you're talking, let's just say 10 feet. You'd have to go up 10
That's a
feet.
12 there.
Yeah.
So Mr. Lenderman, in my experience, there's always an engineering solution. I think the question is FEMA gonna pay for it?
Well, and I don't think they will, but as I think the mayor talked about, is we go with the first course of action we offer is they pay for the bridge, and here's the design or some mitigation to the floodplain that we'd offer. If they don't, and if that's not acceptable, then what if we put the bridge in, and whether we impact the floodplain or not, but we tell them, we're looking at a design that has minimal impact on the floodplain. We also show in our drawing of the area, our future civic center, pickleball courts, baseball fields, whatever, to help with the argument that there's no connection, as Dina pointed out, for FEMA. And then I'd say we take a look, we start with state appropriations money for this bridge. It's pretty quick, it's done every year, and it's the kind of money that we might be able to, I would recommend that over using the money, asking for state appropriations for a sewer plant, but that's just my opinion. I do have a question, and this is really for Dina, I guess. Dina, have they started the EHP process, the environmental and historic preservation process for the 25 acres?
Yes, that is actually why we're here, because EHP, the environmental folks, they're the ones asking for our conceptual site plan because they want to know whether we have to impact the floodplain or not. And I think, kind of backing up to that suggestion about the bridge on piles, the other option, and David, you can help me out with this, is to propose that, show them the design for it, and then also do an H&H analysis to show, you know, if we do this, yes, there is minimal impact, but it doesn't actually cause a hydraulic impact to the surrounding properties or no rise, to show that even though we're doing development in the floodplain by installing this bridge, it's not actually having an impact in terms of flooding on adjacent properties. And they may look at that and accept it and even fund the bridge. I mean, that could happen. But I think it would, again, going back to those task orders, that's the piece we're missing for the 25 acres, is not just the conceptual layout like you see on the screen. Really what FEMA is asking for is more design. They want to see elevations. They want to have an H&H analysis if we're going to impact the ditch. So the task orders would get us to that point. And if the city is committed to that 25 acres, it sounds like we would be minimizing risk to put that level of design has to go into the 25 acres regardless. That is kind of the level of design that FEMA is wanting. What you see on the screen is not sufficient. They've already said we need more. So it sounds like if you're committed to that, that wouldn't be money wasted, even if FEMA didn't reimburse for the design, because you'd have to design it if that's where you're going to put the facilities regardless.
Yeah, and that's another point I have. You're talking about these task orders. Don't we recoup the task order costs if it's associated with that project from FEMA?
Yes, the city currently has design funds obligated by FEMA for the police, fire, and the civic center. Now, I say that if you go forward with the 25 acres, design that, and then decide not to use that design, I don't think FEMA will pay for the design twice to put it somewhere else, if that makes sense. But currently, yes, the city has design funds obligated by FEMA to apply towards this and get reimbursed for.
Okay, yeah, I have some more questions, if you don't mind. Where are we at in the EHP process, and how long has it been in process?
So EHP technically has not started their review because they don't have design to work off of. So the way this has, EHP got it because, as you know, we kept requesting this 8-step process where they analyze the impacts. And that's why we are where we are, because they agreed, yes, putting it back at 14th Street violates FEMA policy because you shouldn't put critical facilities in the floodplain. So that's really as far as they've gone. They can't go any further with their review until they have design, because they have to look at the impacts.
Okay, so we haven't lost any time with the EHP process really then, if we went to a different site?
Correct.
Okay. The Civic Center, I heard mention of it. Is that covered by FEMA, the replacement? I think we sold the property that the Civic Center was on, so we can't put it back there. What's the plan for the Civic Center, or is that even in the thought process?
That was not in the original plan, no.
And so is that being covered by FEMA, Dina, the Civic Center replacement?
The Civic Center has been obligated by FEMA. We will have to revise the project. And well, actually, I don't even think we have to revise it. It's considered an alternate project, so it's capped. So they've obligated an amount. They're not going to give us more than that because we can't put it back where it was. So it's a capped project, but we are allowed to relocate it. It's just they're only going to give us as much funding as they have already obligated.
Okay, and then, not a question, but just a recommendation, I guess. We're talking about other locations like Parker Park. I really believe we need to go back. We started this vision of the city, what we were gonna do. We had the grant, we did that, and that was, we said we were gonna come back and do the second phase or third phase of that. So right now we're talking different areas, and I don't think we truly have a vision of what some of these areas that the city owns are gonna be. What is Parker Park gonna be as opposed to the boat ramp? We're putting a shelter over there. There's discussion that Parker Park's not big enough for some of these big events. So before you go moving anything to Parker Park, what is the plan for Parker Park? You know what? I don't believe we have taken the time like we need to as a council, as a city, to really sit down and determine what we want to have in 5 years, 10 years, what we want our public facilities to look like. And so before you start whittling away with this and then you go, oh man, where are we gonna put that now? I think you need to think about that. Thank you.
Dina, obviously we're looking for more, as much reassurance. We're tired of going this way. I don't know. One thing I was just sitting here thinking about, and you're our rep with FEMA. Y'all have conference calls with the administrator. But I don't know of any other options in the city to put this this fire and police. I mean, I don't know where we have the land at. I mean, we're talking about here, but we're gonna have to do some finagling to squeeze it in here. So, I mean, that's one avenue. I mean, just going to FEMA ahead, I know they have their process and I know but the 25 acres is really where it needs to go. And I don't know where else we would put it. If we can get it here, I guess we could, but it just.
Alright.
So Mayor, I'll second that, or maybe third that.
No, it's not a motion yet, but let's go ahead and.
So, well, you mentioned a few minutes ago that I think we as a council is committed to the 25 acres. I know I am.
Right.
And so, what I heard in this great discussion over the last 20 minutes, but starting with Dina's detailed explanation about what FEMA is asking for and sort of the circuitous path that we can begin to start navigating, is that I think going forward in the near term, my recommendation is that we focus less on the police and fire overlay footprint that I see right there on the screen, and we focus more on the 25 acres, right? That's what I heard, is let's put some task order effort into deciding what all specifics with some drawings that we have to submit to FEMA. What do we want to do for the 25 acres? And then that gets us a couple of things that we think we're going to need, which is the permission to build those roads improved up and over the floodplain. That's my recommendation.
I'll second that.
I think as a council, we're probably ready to go ahead and issue a task to the city administrator to move forward. Is there any other input from yes sir, come on up.
Rock Creek, MD, what can be built on that 80 acres? Can anything?
80 acres?
80 acres. Can anything be built there? I mean, you're gonna take 40 acres of and make a retention pond. You have 40 more acres. It's on 386. What can go in there?
Oh, you mean this for the stormwater project?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got 80 acres.
Stormwater project.
40 and 40, I mean, is there any way you could, I realize it's kind of swampland, but fill that in? You got 40 acres of dirt you're gonna dig, dump it over here, build it up, put your stuff there. Then you wouldn't even have to mess around with that here.
Can you?
I mean, I don't know if you can or not, but it's something you ought to
Yeah,
think
if you
about.
look at the flood zone, it's probably.
It's probably worse than this.
But could you build it up with the dirt? I mean, just another thing to look at.
I know
You got
filling
386
dirt
right
is
there.
environmental, taking it out, putting it in, I mean, you're into all kinds of permitting and everything else.
I don't know how much the road's gonna cost you to put out here, that's not gonna be a cheap endeavor with the bridge.
I don't think we're far from this 25 acres, to tell you the truth. We're talking about a bridge getting across. We're talking about, we're not laying down a road on top of it.
No, I
We're putting
understand.
pylons in.
Well,
Right, 25 acres is the ideal thing, I mean, that was the whole plan for the
Yeah.
last few years to
Yes.
do that. But I mean, if for some reason it doesn't, I'm just kind of wondering what can go in that 80 acres? I mean, if you gotta move the pickleball courts and everything else, can you make that an environmental center and put in your pickleball courts there or whatever? Just to think about it.
I just think we all agree the 25 acres.
Oh, yeah,
is the way to go, and to minimize any impact on our current campus. And the original overlay, and the reason we ended up here is the task order was gonna be focused on a design and $100,000 of expense to the city for a proposal to send to FEMA for this site. I agree with Mr. Linderman too, that we do need, as a council and a city, a better plan for a 5-year, what do we want things to look like? You know, we've been at the mercy, as I said earlier, of FEMA. And I think at this point, we just have to go for it and then look for the appropriations where we can get them. The 25 acres makes the most sense. I'm ready to roll the dice and let's go for it.
Like I said, there's no doubt the 25 acres is what to do. But
If we get,
for the future, you talk about moving things around and looking at stuff, you get the
What's the
80,
question
20,
on
40,
the
yeah.
I think I have some thoughts that are gonna be
Okay.
very different from everybody else's. But, I kinda liked Ms. Falk's idea that she gave us in the email, would be to extend the city hall out, which, you know, once again, we would talk about a relocation of the pickleball court, and the playground. I would move that playground to under the palms because that's used, and the one at Parker Park has a beautiful playground already. And, you know, researching more about the possibility of putting a pickleball court at Parker Park, because that's right on the highway, everybody sees it, it's more visible to the tourists and the people coming and going through our town. And then, you know, even the fire department, could that not be extended into this room and use this? And then these offices just all gather to the extension part of the city hall. And then even the possibility that Tanya Castro mentioned years ago, if we could purchase this land over here, maybe we could even put that for the extra, what we need for the community hall. I mean, we're talking lots of money that's gonna be spent one way or the other. If we build this bridge with the hope that we're gonna be able to do all these other things on that piece of property, maybe we will, maybe we won't. That's gonna take a long, long time for all those boxes to be checked. So that's an option that might work more quickly. And it's making use, I kind of think it's a good thing for the public to know that everything exists in one flow and not spread out all over the place. That's my thought. So I'm really not particularly in favor of that.
Any other input from the audience before we kind of ask some questions here at the table? Everybody's good? All right. We went through quite a bit here. I appreciate everybody's input. And council, great job. Audience, you all had input. I appreciate that. Thanks for coming. That's the main thing. We talked about the 25 acres. It seems to me like there's an appetite for the 25 acres to get solid on that and just start moving forward and see how we do. There's Joe Road that Pat had suggested that's something we could ask some questions about St. Joe Company. We could ask those questions. We talked about the grant money possibility. We can ask about that if it's needed. Buying some properties, we could talk to those owners. We know who they are and see if they have an appetite to sell. There's some things that we can do, but we need to move forward as a city. And I see this council, and I think the audience is speaking, the citizens speaking the same way. I think we want to move forward with the 25 acres. Is that where we're at? Jason?
oh, well, you heard mine. I mean, we've been moving in that direction.
Well, we need to get
I mean, I know, but that's where, for years, we were going to move police and fire. That's what everybody, and I understand if it can't be done. But because just jumping the ship, and if we do happen to come here, I do like it under one roof, but we need to address, if we were coming here, I mean, we need to go ahead and talk to, is the land available? Because I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't want to spend, I know this is definitely, without more land, this is not gonna work. So, we're right there, you know, that's how we got here, is from the task order. So yeah, I mean, I just deem it strong arm. I mean, and call the St. Joe Company and get everybody on board and say, this needs to go here. The police and fire, whoever we can get, the lobby, everybody, to talk to them.
Yeah, so what we'll be doing from here, from this meeting, we'll be giving direction to DAG to move forward with,
Well, we'd have to get the task orders
right.
Yeah.
to review.
And that's what we'll be doing, is asking that. Is
And,
that,
you know, keep,
that's the way I
David
like
and
it.
Pat, y'all keep it, you know, help us.
Linda?
You know, just think about the pier and the FEMA scenario that we've been through, waiting on that pier. So here we are again, you know, very graciously, St. Joe has given us a large piece of land that most of it is, you know, concerned that's not gonna be able to be used. But yet, even to try to get a bridge to, it's gonna cost the city a whole lot of money, and then, oh, maybe they'll let us build that. How long is that gonna take, y'all? How many years is that gonna take? Why not make use of what we already have, expand the city hall, see if we can purchase any property to this way? The fire department possibly could extend into this. Could we even go to a second story on the expansion? If we expanded the city hall, could we even go up on that? It just seems like that would be a lot less expensive, a lot less permission from FEMA to do everything. Because that's a beautiful piece of land, but most of it's not usable.
Eric?
So I am not opposed to what Ms. Hamilton just talked about, and really the work we've been looking at in the last month, right? Once we started looking at expanding this local complex, I'm not opposed to it, but it is absolutely my second choice.
Just to give direction.
If it's a consolation prize that we have to live with, I will be happy with expanding this up. But my preference is working forward to go to 25 acres.
Mr. Cox?
I do understand the pros and cons, and Ms. Hamilton made some valid points, but in order to expand, it means tearing down. And the caveats, and I think we all are accepting of the fact, we're not gonna get FEMA to pay 100% regardless of where we go and what we do. Secondly, we have no guarantee from the landowners of what their price would be to expand with adequate parking and all those things. The 25 acres, I think, is where we have to put our number one choice, because we can't have our city hall and facilities torn down and continue to operate. Public Works, the fire department's been operating, to Ms. Logan's point, all this time, our public safety facilities are just not what they should be. So yes, 25 acres is my first choice.
Okay. So based on that, I look at pickleball courts, and the things are great. They're always used every time you go by there. They've been there for years. They've been updated. We put a lot of money into them. The main thing that hits me on that, the whole thing about building in this area, is the FERDAP grant. We will look like, I don't know how we would be considered on future projects with FEMA, telling them that we're gonna tear up something that they gave us money to build. So it might come to that, but I'd rather come to that after they tell us we can't do something. So.
And Mayor, just to tie my last comment on what you said, there's no guarantee they would approve any of it, to be frank. We're 7+ years in, and we go through a task order and present what we want to do, plus we need to spend $2 or $3 million to acquire the additional land to make this campus complete. And they may say, well, we'll give you 6.8 and we need 12.8. So.
And to that being said, Dina, when I first heard this, I was like, how in the world did we not know this a lot sooner? But Mel has explained how this works and how you go through the process, because I was like 7 years in and we didn't know that FEMA was, gonna tell us that nothing could touch, but it has been explained. I just wanna, you're off the hook with me, Dina, on that one.
All right. With that said, in an effort to move forward, we got nothing but time here. Yes, ma'am, you have a input?
Is it not a possibility?
Sorry.
Nancy Falk, next to Beach.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
it not a possibility to check on all these things? I know things cost money, but could you not check on how much the church property would cost at the same time as checking on whoever the person was that owned this land, at the same time checking to see if FEMA will let us have a bridge so that if they don't, you're ready to possibly do this or possibly do this, and you don't have to keep starting over.
Without exposing everything that we do in this city. I know we're to speak out loud. there's some conversations, obviously, what's going on with that property over there? Are they gonna do something with it? Is it available, not available? We're
Right.
asking those questions.
Right.
Yeah, and I would say, I'm with you, that was one of my things, can we go ahead and be proactive? And
Yes.
Really,
main
that's
thing.
the first thing over there, the church is different, that property would probably make it fit. But we
Yeah.
should have,
Just-
when
Just
they,
to, check and have other things, should
Alternatives.
that one
Absolutely.
fall through, then, okay, well then, here's our next thing.
Well, that's exactly why we had this meeting. I mean, I think Jason tried to explain that when we had our last council meeting and we had a task order to move forward, to spend some more money to design this, we as council said, stop, let's get together, decide what we really wanna do, and that's where we're at today, so, point well taken.
The church property is in the 500-year floodplain, so there wouldn't be any FEMA reimbursement. That'd be on us.
Okay, so with that said, we need to give direction. I'm not saying we need to approve anything as of today, but we need to give some direction to the city administrator and our staff to move forward task orders, to bring task orders to the council for approval or whatever. So is there a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion that we give the city administrator the authority to put the task orders together for the next meeting as soon as possible,
Moving on to 25 acres.
moving on the 25 acres.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Take the roll, Tammy, please.
Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Mr. Fasagi?
Yes.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton?
No.
Mayor Wolf?
Yes. Thank you. Again, thank you for coming, appreciate it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tina. Thanks, David.
That's all right.
Uh-huh.